Welcome back to the Property Show, brought to you by Nippon Paint. I'm Lim Soon Heng, and with me in the studio is Mr. Choong Chin Wei of Migration Avenue. His company uses the services of a serviced office. We'll find out from him how his company chooses a service provider and the role of location and a building's image in the decision making. You've used service office before, right? In one company. How did you go about choosing where you want to find an office?
We look at the marketability of the location, that's number one. We would try to see where are the service offices located and then try to look at the aesthetics of the place because it's a branding thing for the company as well.
So you look for branding,
Yeah.
and that made you kind of make your decision based on that, the branding.
And also the location, because we cater to out-of-town people as well, so people who are not familiar with KL may not actually find us easily. So we want to be in a landmark building. One of the reasons the services offices that we chose was because it was in a landmark building, it was easy to find. Public transport was nearby as well, so it made it a bit easier for clients or potential clients to actually come in to see us.
It didn't occur to the company to do your own premises, find a nice building, and then set it up yourself.
Well, we thought about it, but when we factor in the cost and all that, where obviously when you find your own premises, you did to do up the renovation, partitions and all that, having people to design the build out and all that too, measurements and all that. So that was a bit of a hassle to us, we thought. Services offices are great. They have a purpose. They serve a purpose, basically, and we felt it was appropriate for a setup like ours.
When you set up your company at that point in time, how many people, in all the company, the size of your company?
In total, there was about 4 of us.
So at what point did you decide time to move out?
Well, when we decided to move out, it was a fork in the road where the lease was up for renewal. So we were considering whether to renew the lease for another 2 years, I believe, or whether to move on to our new premises. At the time, our company has grown to a staff of about, I believe, 8.
So when using a service office, at what juncture does it become not economically feasible or not economically beneficial to stay there as opposed to moving to?
So an example in our scenario would be like, if you consider having your own premises, what are the costs? What's the rental like? Even with the renovations and all that, spread across over a year or the duration of a lease that they were offering, whether is it still more economical? So when we did our calculations, the rental for the size that we have for our company, 8 staff, and also having our own premises with the do-up and all that, the do-up was actually more cost efficient. So that actually prompted us to move out into our own premises.
When you moved out, you rented or you bought an office space?
Oh, basically we leased it from the central building management. So
where did you move to?
In the same building, a different floor.
Ah,
so
okay. So still chose a landmark building.
That's correct.
But this time, instead of using a serviced office, you just rented the space and did it up yourself.
That's correct. So it was part of an opportunity as well because not all the floors were actually partitioned out to be sublet in a way. Usually the building management lists out the whole floor in its entirety, but there was one floor where a recent tenant just moved out as well. So that space was fairly okay for our company.
Actually, having the experience of being in a service office and then figuring out, time to move out because you had a certain number of staff, and then that it was the cost effectiveness moving out. And now that you are now back in a service office as a new company, with a new company.
Yeah.
How many headcount now?
3.
Based on that, at what juncture would you again now move out of a service office?
Well, it's a bit different now, I think, compared to how we were probably about 3-4 years ago when we moved out the previous time. Right now, the industry of the business that we're in is getting skinnier. So we do not foresee that we will expand greatly as per previously. So we might want to keep a lean and efficient team in a way.
And when the team is small, so it's more cost effective to use service offices.
I would think so, because when a team is small, then you don't need to hire a full-time receptionist or an admin staff to help you with normal daily chores and all that. Service offices actually offer receptionists who are very professional in their handling.
With the growth of a whole new property market called Sohos and Sovos, where they are kind of small enough for like a 3-man office or a 4-man. How would these compare to using service offices for you?
Well, again, firstly, the location. Unless you're not doing any like consulting or no front end, if you're just all back end, then maybe a Soho concept would be great because it doesn't matter where the location is, as long as it's close to the residence of the workers, I guess. But for our business where we need to meet clients need to come and find us, I think it's still important to be a landmark office. Obviously, in a landmark building, there's not many Soho options, I think.
So in terms of services from a service office, what are, in a sense, indispensable? So if you go over to a Soho, you might have some of the services, like your internet and all this electricity, whatever service providers can provide you. What differentiates a service office, the choice of choosing a service office or your own office?
Well, I would say that also service offices gives clients a possible impression that you are bigger than what you really are.
Deception.
Yeah, in a way, yes. But you could call it creative marketing in that way. Basically, it's, again, an image thing where, of course, no matter how well you do up the Soho, it may not look as presentable as what service offices offer.
So a service office provides you, in a sense, an economy of scale that you, as a smaller company, might not be able to
achieve. That's correct. That's what we'll think.
What are the services you do use?
Well, basically, we do occasionally use secretarial services, but I do have to put in a word of caution where it is expensive when you have the secretaries or the receptionists actually doing something for you, for your company. The way they bill is actually very different, but it's very common probably in developed markets like the States and Australia and things like that, where people are used to that concept. Probably many people in Malaysia, they get caught up in the first month, and at the end of the month you get the bill, and you're like in for a shocker actually. So that's one word of caution, I think, for service offices. But as long as you are clear and you find out before you utilize any services, I think you would manage well.
There are now some nice buildings in town, especially with the new ones coming up in like Petaling Jaya and all that. How attractive would these kind of places be for you?
Firstly, of course, again, it's the location. Second thing would be the cost. It might not be really different if the Soho unit itself is in a location, prime location, let's say in Bangsa. Because Bangsa is a place where a lot of Sohos are actually popping up. The rent may still be expensive, and it doesn't come with a receptionist or a secretary. So a service office basically offers that all in one with your rent.
Some services are indispensable, especially when you're small. So it's not a question just of location of a new Soho. So there are some of these kind of services.
Of course, I think it's just, it comes in a package. It's a good package of consideration for service offices because of, number one, the location. Number two, the build-up is all there. You don't really need to fix it. You can't really change their deco and things like that. And also, it comes with a receptionist or admin who can actually help you.
A support staff and support facilities, like a boardroom.
Yeah, there are boardrooms, there are you can get water and all that. You don't need to deal with another supplier or vendor to have bottled water delivered to your dispenser and things like that.
Right.
If you have personal experience in setting up your own business, even getting a line, a StreamMix account with Telecom can be a real time waster. So service offices actually offer that.
Thank you very much.
All right.
You are listening to Mr. Choong Chin Wei, whose company uses a service office.